tell by the silly gameplay behind me, but we're talking about Kirby today, and not just any Kirby game. Kirby's Adventure, which, is it the best game in the franchise? I'm one of the guys who argues that. It's my very favorite Kirby game, is Adventure. Does it have the right to be my favorite Kirby game? Probably not. I think that there's a lot of different games in the franchise that, the audience, the fans prefer. You go to Superstar or Robobot, both absolutely wonderful experiences, no doubt. Absolute masterpieces of games, without a doubt in my mind. Kirby's Adventure on the NES, which is a great game, but has some flaws, is my favorite in the franchise. Why is that the case? Well, I guess I'm a sucker for nostalgia. Let's go back to many, many years ago. I was quite the youngster, 9, 10, 11, 12, a little guy, right? I think I said in a previous video that I started game collecting when I was 9. Well, I think it was somewhere around the ages of, I think it was like 9 or 10. I want to say my first old school game system I got when I was 9, which technically started my collection, but I didn't really start collecting heavy till I was 10 or 11. And one of the earlier purchases in my collection, I don't want to say earlier, I would say relatively early on, I got Kirby's Adventure. And I absolutely loved it. It was one of the first NES games I ever beat, and I loved the whole playthrough. What makes this game so special? Well, it was a really, really huge game for the Kirby franchise. Kirby's Dreamland came out on the Game Boy, and, it was a fun game, That wasn't too crazy, just a few levels. You could beat it in like an hour or two. Pretty quick playthrough. But it had that Nintendo charm to it, and the music was great, and the platforming was great, the characters were likable. Overall, it was a very fresh new franchise for Nintendo. Now, how do you follow that up? Well, you just refine it. And this is to me, this game is basically an extremely refined version of what Kirby's Dreamland on the Game Boy was. This game introduced Kirby's copy ability, which became completely iconic. In Kirby's Dreamland, you could eat the enemy, but you wouldn't get any ability out of it. It was still a cool, neat idea. But yeah, and this is the second Kirby game in the whole Kirby franchise, the second mainline Kirby game. Also, he's pink in this one. In the first game, Kirby's official artwork, he was gray, like the Game Boy, which is, I think that was a neat thing to do because, it would be interesting to know when you're playing Kirby's Dreamland, oh, Kirby's actually gray. It's not just my Game Boy screen doing it. Kirby's, actually gray. So I think that was a smart choice. But moving forward, I like that they gave him a more colorful look in Kirby's Adventure. It's so much more expansive than the original game. To me, it's just a refined version of what that original game was. Each world is like so unique. It's its own things going on. The overworld. Oh, I absolutely adore the overworlds in Kirby's Adventure. There's each one has its own unique theme, and each level has its own there's these. Each zone or world has its own set of unique themes, and it's always such a joy to listen to them when I'm playing Kirby's Adventure. My favorite theme in any Kirby game ever is the I think it's either called Orange. I think it's called Rainbow Resort. It's the theme that plays in the overworld in the I don't know if it's in the 7th world in that game. I think it's the last world in that game it plays. I think it's called Rainbow Resort. I don't know that for sure, but it's one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time, without a doubt in my mind. A huge rush of nostalgia hits me for being a young kid, not super worried about the future nor the past. Truly one of the golden hours of life, in my opinion. is when you're, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're old enough to understand things, but you're not old enough to care. You just live in the moment, simply. And it's easy to live in the moment when you're that age. Simpler times, right? You had Kirby's Adventure, just went on adventures with Kirby and messed around, whatnot. And I will, without a doubt, this game's not perfect, but I absolutely adore it. I really do. I think that the level design is pretty good. The enemies are fun and interesting. Some levels, there's not every level is perfect, but overall, as a product, I think the level design is pretty good. The only minor complaint from like a more critical standpoint is that the game, so it was obviously on the NES, it came out in 93. The Super Nintendo, which is its successor, came out in 91. So this was a very late NES release. I think to an extent, for good and for bad, it shows. It's the graphics and the art style is very impressive for the NES. Because of that, you get some occasional frame drops and slowdown, and it could just move a little bit slower than it's supposed to. I've had lots of slowdown in a few certain levels. But I can look past it. I really can. It's not something that I worry about too much when I'm playing through Kirby's Adventure. So, if you haven't played this game, I'm going to talk a little bit about spoilers. So, if you don't want to be, it's not like a huge story game. It's just a, there's not really much of a story. You just kind of, there is a little bit of a story, but I guess you're warned now. If you don't want to hear anything else about the game that might be revealed to you later, this is your time to, But I really, really like the end segment. You go to the Fountain of Dreams, as they call it, and King DDD is there, and he, looks pretty hostile, wants to fight Kirby, and you whoop him, but you later learn that he was not doing anything malicious. He was simply trying to protect the Fountain of Dreams, because if you Nightmare comes out of it. I'm trying to remember how the plot goes. It's not a super crazy plot or anything. I'm trying to remember how it goes, but I think it was this guy called Nightmare, who's the opposite of dreams, and Kirby stands for dreams and he stands for nightmares. So you got to whoop him, and you do. The essence of Kirby's Adventure, the whole adventure from start to finish truly just feels magical. And that's what I love about video games the most, is that, it feels like you're in a dream. That's what I love about video games the most, the fantasy aspect. You're going to places that you never could go to in real life. And there's some passionate person behind that who made this world for other people to enjoy. And Kirby's Adventure, to me, just embodies that magical essence of video games that, nothing to worry about. There's just no worries in Kirby's Adventure. You're just going on a fun adventure with a lovable cartoon character like Kirby, and you're just meeting new friends, saving the day, telling her how you feel. Not that part, but it's really a magical game. It really is. To me, it's very magical. Now, Kirby does move a little bit slow, but he does float. Again, some of these complaints are minor. The game doesn't move super fast. And again, regardless of all these complaints, it's still such a magical game to me that I just don't even care. I can look past all these flaws. I will recommend, if you want to play through Kirby's Adventure, I would say you could still play the NES version. You'll have a great time with it. But there is a GBA remake called Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland that upscales the graphics and has a smoother frame rate, and it still retains that absolutely magical essence of the original Kirby's Adventure. It's nothing is compromised. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I think it always will be. It's a really magical experience that makes me reminiscent of my youth. And Still relatively youthful, but I mean like quite the youth, like 12 years old, right? I would give Kirby's Adventure a try. If I haven't sold you, then I don't know. You should play it though. And who am I to say, right? Who am I to say you should play it? That's fair. That's something fair to bring up. But it was the first. Was it the first Kirby game I beat? I want to say the first Kirby game I beat was either. I think it was either Triple Deluxe or Adventure. And I'm having a hard time remembering which one I beat first. Well, I want to say it was Adventure because I got an NES when I was relatively young. So, doesn't matter, right? Even though there are many games in the franchise that, in my opinion, are stronger, not a single one holds such a weight in my heart quite like Kirby's Adventure does. So, if you want to be enlightened and go on a magical adventure with Kirby, play Kirby's Adventure. Well, I'm out. Gotta split.